Here are three truths. The suburbs can be lonely, intimacy isn't always sweet, and, as the writer Mary Cantwell once said, marriage, at least in the beginning, requires three people. The third provides the glue. Anthony and I lived in a suburb, the kind where everyone is friendly, but no one really seems to be a friend. We were in year 6 of our marriage, so not in the beginning, but we needed glue. We didn't talk, and as a result, our anger was mounting. We needed an outlet, so we picked our neighbor Gary, but we didn't call him by his actual name. We called him Blocker. He parked his car on the sidewalk. Big deal. But minor drama is it's the lifeblood of the suburbs. He was an opportunity, so Anthony and I seized it. Anthony and I seized it. We needed glue desperately that year. In James M. Honeycutt's research article, Differences in Imagined Interactions, he provides that sharing as a marital ideology can be associated as a negative attachment, as well as negatively associated as an anxious, ambivalent attachment. Sometimes the people in our life can be said attachment. In this New York Times editorial, Modern Love, we examine the villains in our lives and how, although they are supposed to cause us ruin, it is rarely discussed the antagonists that actually enrich your life. After all, the villains always help the heroes grow in the end. It Took a Villain to Save Our Marriage by Teresa Difalco. The petty details. Locker had a 2-car garage and full driveway, but preferred to park his black SUV across the sidewalk. So anyone who wanted to go on the sidewalk in front of his house had to walk into the street to get by. I walked up and down that hill to the park every day, and one day, I noticed a window was open. So I shouted, "Get off the sidewalk!" Blocker's response was prompt. He pounded on our door one day, so I opened it. He wore faded jeans and a t-shirt. And except for how frightening he looked, like he killed a man in Reno, oh, he was attractive, okay? He didn't bother with the pleasantries, however. He shouted expletives at our face in broad daylight. And Anthony gave it right back to him. This was the year that I felt trapped. Like Rapunzel at the top of the hill, lonely and invisible. Until Anthony came in, strong and fierce, to my defense. This went on for months, the three of us in our gloriously crazy affair. Until Anthony and I bought a house in a new town by the end of the year. Not because of Blocker, but when Anthony and I have problems, we throw change at it, our MO. So when the open house signs posted around the neighborhood went missing, we naturally assumed that Blocker had been behind it. Okay. I actually harbored a secret thought that he didn't want us to go. Then one day, when Anthony went silently to bed, we were in the worst kind of fight. The kind you walk away seething. I fumed and had a little too much wine to drink. So while the rest of the block kissed goodnight, I stomped on down to Blocker's house and pounded on his door. He opened it, shirtless and calm. It unnerved me. I'm sure I looked crazed. My face felt puffed up. Stop stealing our signs! There was a shift. It was he who had the advantage now. I was on his doorway and drunk. The blocker didn't seem angry as he should have been that I'd bothered him that late. No. We stood inches apart. There was this intimacy to our strange hatred. Look, he said, I didn't take your signs seriously. The city picks them up sometimes, and I can show you where they are if you want me to. No, and I didn't want, but I thanked him and walked home, both shaken and comforted. Thinking that Anthony would kill me if he knew I crossed enemy lines like that. I never told him. The truth of the matter is that we moved a couple months later without having said another word. And a year later, just last month, I received a phone call from an old neighbor. I have kind of weird news, she said, and paused. Pauses are never good. Gary's dead. He hung himself. But my heart seemed to stop and I couldn't breathe. No, it was impossible. Blocker wouldn't do that. No, he was Teflon. He was something that couldn't break. He was stronger than all of us. But he wasn't, though. And he was probably near his breaking point, and maybe it was even obvious. I had just been too caught up in our strange dance to see it. After all, I wasn't supposed to care about him. We were enemies. But then I remember the first time he showed up on our doorstep. Terrifying and angry. And I think that's all he could do. It was this violent, profane tirade against us. Against the world, as it turned out. And it broke my heart. But in my mind, I give us a closure I desperately wished I could have achieved in real life. We're sitting on his porch, sharing a beer, making small talk. And I say I'm sorry. He understands both.